That old penny in your change jar could be worth more than your entire car. Sounds unbelievable, right? For most of us, pennies are the coins we ignore, the ones that get lost between couch cushions or left behind at the gas station counter. But hidden among those ordinary cents are treasures that have shocked collectors and rewritten auction records. Simple copper coins that have sold for the price of a luxury home. The twist? They don't look like treasure at all. Some are scratched, dirty, even rusty, and yet they've commanded sums that make seasoned investors blink twice. So here's the question. What makes one penny worthless and another worth hundreds of thousands? In the next few minutes, we'll uncover stories of forgotten jars, garage discoveries, and ordinary-looking coins that changed lives overnight. Imagine a single penny wiping out your student loans, covering a down payment on a house, or paying for your dream car in cash. Suddenly, the tiniest coin in U.S. currency becomes a symbol of possibility. What most people dismiss as pocket clutter can, under the right circumstances, become a financial jackpot. So what actually makes one penny worth a fortune while another remains just pocket change? The answer lies in a fascinating mix of rarity, history, and human psychology. Collectors, known in the hobby as numismatists, aren't simply chasing shiny copper. They're hunting for stories told through metal, and the rarer the story, the higher the value. Picture America in 1936. The Great Depression still lingered, families stretched every penny to buy bread, and the idea of saving coins for collecting was almost laughable. Into this world came the Denver-minted Lincoln Wheat Penny. Millions were struck, but nearly all were spent instantly, passed from hand to hand in grocery stores, gas stations, and pay envelopes. To most people, it was just another cent helping them survive another day. Now imagine this. Nearly a century later, one of those very pennies emerges from a dusty trunk in a family attic. At first glance, it looks ordinary, worn edges, faded lettering, a coin that clearly did its time in circulation. But when numismatic experts examined it, they discovered something extraordinary. Despite its wear, it retained enough sharp detail, originality, and untouched surfaces to stand out from millions of others. That balance of history and preservation transformed a common cent into a showstopper. When the coin went to auction, collectors pounced. Bidding escalated into the hundreds of thousands until the final hammer price landed at an astonishing $400,000. Think about that. One coin, used by everyday Americans in the midst of hardship, later selling for more than most houses. Part of its power is emotional. Holding a 1,936 penny isn't just holding copper, it's holding a fragment of American resilience. Each scratch whispers of breadlines, gas rations, and determination to push forward. Collectors don't just pay for rarity, they pay for connection. This penny bridged the gap between an era of survival and our modern obsession with hidden treasures. Now, pause for a moment. What if a coin like that was sitting in your family's old coin jar? What if the penny you've been dismissing as junk carried within it a six-figure story? That's the mind-shifting reality of coin collecting, the line between worthless and price. Less is far thinner than most people believe. And here's where it gets even more surprising. The 1,936 penny sold for an unbelievable sum despite being a circulated coin with visible wear. But believe it or not, an even uglier, rusty, and seemingly damaged penny would later command an even higher price. That's the story we'll dive into next, and it just might shatter everything you thought you knew about value. At first glance, the 1,974 penny that stunned the numismatic world looked like junk. Its surface was spotted with rust, its luster long gone, and it carried the weary scars of years spent in damp, forgotten corners. Most people, even seasoned collectors, would have shrugged it off as worthless. After all, isn't the first rule of collecting that damage destroys value? But here's where the story takes a thrilling twist. This ruined coin went on to sell for a jaw-dropping $480. The secret lay not in its shine, but in its DNA. Minted during a period when copper prices were rising, the U.S. Mint reportedly experimented with alternative alloys and planchets. This particular penny showed unusual surface traits, suggesting it might have been struck on an experimental blank, or even the wrong metal altogether. Add in the possibility of a mint error, and suddenly what looked like a reject became a one-of-a-kind treasure dot. The discovery itself only adds to the legend. A retiree in Kansas, cleaning out his late grandfather's garage, stumbled upon a dusty coffee tin filled with coins. Most were ordinary pocket change, but this one caught his eye. Not because it looked valuable, but because it looked different. Corroded and strange, it nearly ended up in the trash. Instead, he submitted it for appraisal, where experts uncovered its astonishing rarity. That decision changed everything. When the coin hit the auction block. Collectors with a taste for oddities and transitional errors went into a frenzy. Each bid climbed higher, not for a pristine beauty, but for an anomaly that wasn't supposed to exist. By the time the hammer dropped, the rusty cent had earned the nickname the Rusty Millionaire, proving that in the world of rare coins, perfection isn't the prize. Uniqueness is. But the surprises don't stop here. If you thought rust was shocking, wait until you see the next story. A coin that looked completely ordinary, with no obvious flaws, but hid a powerful secret only visible under magnification. It's a double die error invisible to the naked eye. And its discovery turned another junk penny into a six-figure legend. The 1951 wheat penny didn't sparkle. In fact, it looked grimy, worn, and almost lifeless. Exactly the kind of coin you'd expect to find at the bottom of a shoebox in your grandparents' closet. Most people would have brushed it aside as pocket change gone dull. But here's where the story flips. That worthless little disc sold for an incredible $460. The secret? Two things that most eyes would miss. First, a reverse double die error, where the lettering and wheat stalks on the back were slightly doubled due to a misaligned die strike. To the naked eye, it looked like dirt or shadow. Under magnification, it revealed one of the most coveted mint errors in the Lincoln series. Second, metallurgical tests showed the penny was struck from an unusual alloy, likely the result of leftover blanks or experimental mixing at the San Francisco Mint. Together, those anomalies transformed this dingy coin into a once-in-a-lifetime find. This is where psychology comes in. Human beings are wired to dismiss what looks dirty, broken, or ordinary. We chase after the shiny and the flawless, assuming that beauty equals value. But in collecting and in life, the overlooked details often hide the greatest opportunities. The 1951 is a perfect reminder. Sometimes the treasure isn't the coin that gleams, but the one that quietly carries secrets beneath its scars. And think about the journey. This coin sat unnoticed in a jar for decades, passed over again and again, until someone finally took the time to look closer. That decision unlocked nearly $500,000 in hidden value. Imagine how many other worthless coins are still waiting to be recognized. Now, if a dirty and uncommon 1951 penny can command that price, what about a year that millions of people assume is too common to matter? Coming up next, we'll uncover a penny from the mid-1950s, one struck in huge numbers, that still managed to break records. And its secret wasn't visible to the naked eye either. At a flea market in Colorado, a teenager shuffled through a bag of old wheat pennies being sold for just a few dollars. Most of them were scratched, common, and unremarkable. But one coin, the 1956 wheat penny, looked ordinary enough to blend in until closer inspection revealed something extraordinary. That coin, bought for pocket change, later sold for an astonishing $370. The secret was hidden on the obverse, or front side of the penny. Under magnification, experts spotted a double die error, where the date, 1956, and the word liberty showed clear doubling. To the untrained eye, it might have looked like blur or shadow. To collectors, it was proof of a rare minting mistake that transformed this coin into one of the most valuable of its era. Here's the contrast that makes this story powerful. Thousands of people walked past that flea market table, dismissing the bag as junk, while one curious teenager spotted the detail that changed everything. This isn't just a story about luck, it's about awareness. Rare coins aren't always locked in vaults. Sometimes they're sitting in plain sight, waiting for someone willing to look a little closer. And that's the empowering lesson here. If a young hobbyist with nothing more than curiosity and a few dollars could uncover a six-figure treasure, so can you. The difference isn't expertise, it's attention. Value often hides in places the average eye ignores, and the only barrier between junk and jackpot is the willingness to ask, what if? Now, if a teenager's flea market find could shake the coin world, imagine what happens when history itself collides with rarity. Our final story comes from the end of World War II, a time of rationing, experimentation, and desperate adjustments at the mint. One seemingly ordinary 1945 penny, struck in Philadelphia with no mint mark, carried a hidden twist in its very metal. And when it resurfaced decades later, it shocked even veteran collectors. The year was 1945. World War II was coming to a close, and America was still rationing materials for the war effort. Metals like copper, nickel, and silver were in constant demand, forcing the U.S. Mint to experiment with unusual alloys and improvisations. Out of that turbulent moment came one of the most astonishing coin stories in American history, the 1945 Philadelphia Wheat Penny with no mint mark. To almost everyone, it looked like any other penny, ordinary, brown, and forgettable. Yet this humble coin later sold for a staggering $440. What set it apart? Two extraordinary features. First, the planchet itself was different. Instead of the usual bronze metallurgical tests, revealed a transitional alloy that included traces of silver and nickel. Wartime necessity had likely caused leftover blanks or experimental mixtures to be struck into circulation. Second, the coin displayed a strong double-die obverse. The date, the word liberty, and even parts of In God We Trust showed dramatic doubling, errors so bold they became impossible to ignore once magnified dot. But the true magic lies in its journey. The coin was quietly pulled from circulation by a Philadelphia bank worker in the 1940s. He had a habit of setting aside coins that looked unusual, tucking them into a small personal collection. For decades, it sat in a wooden box, gathering dust, until his family rediscovered it long after his passing. Only then, under professional evaluation, did experts confirm it was one of the rarest Lincoln cents ever minted. Think about the irony. A penny that survived breadlines, post-war inflation, and decades of indifference ended up telling a richer story than coins most people consider valuable. It wasn't shiny, it wasn't pristine, yet its rarity, combined with its wartime context, made it irresistible to collectors. When it finally reached auction, bidding wars erupted, and the price soared to nearly $500,000. And here's the deeper lesson. Sometimes the most ordinary years hide the rarest opportunities. We assume common dates are worthless, just like we assume ordinary routines or overlooked details in life carry no value. But just as that 1945 penny proved, what seems unremarkable can hold astonishing secrets. If you take the time to look closer, when you step back from these stories, a clear pattern emerges. Value in coins isn't just about age. It's about three forces working together: scarcity, story, and condition. Scarcity makes something desirable because so few exist. Story gives it emotional weight, connecting us to a specific time in history. And condition, while important, often bends to the first two, because a rare story in scarce supply can outshine even the shiniest coin. This is where psychology kicks in. Humans are wired to crave what is rare, to assign meaning to objects that carry history, and to compete fiercely when only a handful are available. That's why a penny dismissed by millions as worthless can suddenly spark bidding wars worth hundreds of thousands.